In today's episode, I speak to DD Hoffman about how to think out of the box and burn the business plan. DD talks about his experience of setting up a new business and never seen before in South Africa. He also talks about the need for asking for help and the need to accept it when it's offered. We talk about strategizing in your business, your deliberate strategy and your emergent strategy, and how you can't execute without it. DD opens up the discussion about the purpose of a business plan for small businesses and what really works for them. Listen up to the rest of the conversation. Before we begin our conversation, here is a quick shout out to the pathologically curious. Check out the Maverick Paradox magazine. It's a digital magazine written by Mavericks for business owners and professionals. You can find the magazine at themaverickparadox.com. The magazine's aim is to provoke maverick leadership everywhere. Welcome to the Maverick Paradox podcast, where we explore what it is to be a maverick and discover effective modes of leadership. I am Judith Germain, and my mission is to propel the maverick mindset into a world where character and integrity will ultimately have a higher premium than personality and bureaucracy. So thank you for joining me on this journey. If you would like to continue with me, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. And today our guest is DD Hoffman. Hi, DD.
Hi, Judith. Awesome to be here.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to it too. I'm very curious about our subject for today. But before we begin, share who you are.
Yeah, Judith, I'm from South Africa. Farm boy, grew up on a farm, very much family orientated as far as that is concerned. And then, in South Africa, we had in those early 60s, 80s, we had a 2 years compulsory national service. So after my school days, I did my 2 years national service. And then I would have loved to go farming myself, but I didn't have the financial means. So I started to go into the nursery business, and we put up the first potted herb growing operation in South Africa, which was just basically farming on a more intensive and on a different scale. And after that, I've been in the nursery industry for, you can say, 4 decades now. Started getting involved with our traditional leaders in South Africa, started to help re-educate them more in the, doing business in a more Western way, setting up their business practices. So, still plant some people. That's who I am.
Wow, that sounds really good. So it sounds like you've had quite an interesting sort of working life compared to some other people.
Definitely very much a very, very interesting working life. In those early days when we started with the nursery, even a nursery, it's not as capital intensive as a farm, but a wholesale growing operation is very capital intensive. So we really had to think out of the box and bootstrap everything to make it work for us. And I think that was sort of one of the defining things in my whole life, is that I had to put my pride in my pocket and go to other people and say, listen, I need help. In not financial help, but in terms of help me to make plans to get this thing running and get this thing going, because we really think there's a market for it in South Africa, and we really want to get it going. But I think very much I love nature, very much love being out in nature, but deep respect and deep love for people.
And how easy was it to ask for help, or was that really hard?
It was terrible. We grew up in a farming community where there's a lot of interaction, and farmers, tend to help each other quite a lot. But, admitting to not being able to solve a problem, that was sort of frowned upon. So it was very, very hard to go out to people, and most of the people I didn't know. It was, like calling today. I got into my car, went to other nurseries, growers, and I think the thing that saved me was that I wasn't competing with them directly because there was no other potted herb growers in South Africa. So they were all very willing to help, but still, I was a total stranger walking into their business, which was also others, something different at that stage. It was before social media and all of this. So, visitors was welcome. Um, so, yeah, I think, but you learn quickly to rather ask for help than figuring it out on your own. I didn't have the money to do that.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's any different, like if you have a service business, if it's any easier to ask for help in a service business as it is in the nursery business.
I don't think so. We work with a lot of these traditional healers and trying to set them up with clinics and things like that. And I see exactly the same thing there. They would rather suffer on their own. Judith, it's like, getting a mentor.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing. People, we are very proud in ourselves, and we fail to realize that, reaching out to somebody else and sitting around a table and strategizing with them about how to solve a problem, you actually learn a lot more than just solving the problem.
Yeah, it's made me really think, because I mentor business owners as well, and it's a paid mentoring thing. And I remember being at an acquaintance's house, and then it was a party, and then there was this teenager, so she must have been, not teenage, probably like 19, 20, 21, that sort of age. And she wanted to get into a particular industry. And I had experience in that from my corporate world. And I offered, she had a bright young thing, so I offered to mentor her for free.
Yeah.
And she said that she wanted to do that because she wanted to, obviously, to gain access and stuff. But then when it came down to it, she felt unable to accept it. And I didn't know whether it was because of her age or whether it's because it was given freely.
Yeah, that's interesting. I also help out. I do a lot of volunteer work, giving back. And one of the things is Mercy Corps. They've got a platform called Micro Mentor, where we actually mentor people for free. It's pro bono mentoring. Part of the deal with Mercy Corps is you can't charge those people. And I see exactly the same thing there, Judith. People will contact you and they will set up a first meeting. And when they realize that they're actually going to get all this for free, they become very uneasy about it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why I think mentorship in that respect should be paid, because I think people find it quite uncomfortable to get the support for what they see as nothing. So tell me about strategizing in business, because I know that's something that you do all the time. So tell me more.
Sorry, I didn't get that, Judith.
Strategy in business.
Oh, strategy. Yeah. Look, I think, and it's coming from, I learned this the hard way, that we had to make plans. At one stage, my aim was to grow at least 150 to 200 indigenous medicinal herbs as potted herbs. So we had to put up systems from the start that didn't exist in terms of, even just growing information about, how do you collect the seed? When do you collect the seed? When do you sow the stuff? Once you got over that hurdle, how do you apply it? And that taught me a hard way to make long-term plans. Because some of these herbs, actually, we have a 3-year growing schedule. So the thinking behind the strategy, and then it was just a question of translating that to business, and the business side of it. So deciding, where do we want to go with this business? What is the recipe? And I discovered that strategy in business is just all about asking questions. And the first answer is usually the wrong answer. Often it can be right, but it's usually the wrong answer if you accept it on face value. So you have to take your first answer and then dig deeper and dig deeper and dig deeper till you get to the bedrock. But it's literally a question of deciding and asking questions of where you want your business to take a business from here to wherever you want to go. And then also, because it's a business, how do you make money along the way doing it? Because if you're not making money, you're not in business.
I think so. I help my clients, whether they're corporate clients or smaller clients, how to strategize, innovate, and execute. And I think before you can get to execution, you obviously need the strategy and you need the questions. And I think that often people stop asking questions too soon. So they might do the first lot of questions as to what do you want to do, what purpose have you got, when does it need to be done, but they don't go deeper into the questions to form a real proper strategy. And then so I find that you ask those kind of foundational questions, then you get the deeper questions that help you understand the situation better. And then you flip the questions again to go into the wider, bigger strategy, and then you can strategize. But you can't do the strategizing until you've spent a good deal of time asking questions and then asking the questions that have come from that. Is that how you see it working when you do it?
Absolutely, that's how we see it. But being a total left-brainer, I've developed structures to structure the questioning process so that I do it in blocks. And I like to start always, even if it's a small project, I like to start with a simple question of just why. Why is this necessary? And once you can do this big level now, you can do it for your business, you can do it for your life. It doesn't matter, even a small project, start with why. Why do we want to do this? And then looking at the idea behind it, that's the next step for me always is, what is the big idea? And if it's in the business, is it monetizable? It's very important. There are so many things that we can go on tangents on, is that I like to get that right. And then the simple question, how will it make money? Is there a business recipe? Is there a definite need? And once I've got those blocks out, then it becomes a question of how are we going to deliver it? And then we can look at that. And that's the, typical corporate strategy structures where we will look at, environmental map, what is the trends and competition, etc. And then we will look at in more detail at our customers, and what's the value proposition and how we're going to deliver it. And then it's basically the business model questions, delivery, partnerships, etc. And then, like you've mentioned, once we've got those two blocks, the most important block and the one they don't teach you in business school is execution. It's very easy actually to go and sit, and it's thrilling and it's exciting to do all this planning and all the strategizing. But if it's just a document, then it's been a waste of time. So we've learned the hard way to actually focus more on the implementation than the strategy. And I like to call it like the first strategy we do, like you've also said, that's the deliberate strategy. That's the one that you plan on paper. But you must really accept that once you've got that, you will have an emergent strategy. It's like in landscaping, we say, when the plan meets the soil or the terrain, the plan will change. Because you couldn't measure everything from day one. And that's the same with a business strategy. So I always believe that there should be two. There should be the deliberate strategy, the one that you've planned, and then there's the emerging one. Because as you're going to put this plan into action, things will change. And then you have to make decisions on the spot, guided by your deliberate strategy, but not saying that this is cast in stone. And that's very nice in a small business because it's normally just yourself and one or two other people that can make that decision. In your situation with a big corporate, it's difficult. You can't change the strategy on a whim.
You know what I find really interesting? I so agree with that deliberate strategy and emergent strategy. And I think when it gets to the emergent strategy, that's where I see people faltering, even large organizations, because it's like, we didn't plan for this.
Yeah.
And that's why I think really maverick leaders are really good, because
they expect the strategy, they plan the strategy to emerge. Do you know what I mean? Which sounds a bit weird, but it's like in the planning, we're going to do this, but then there's room for an emergent strategy to come in, because there's always that check to make sure that it's still getting to the same destination or the deliberate strategy.
Yeah.
And I think that's why maverick leaders find it easier to stay on course, because they expect the unexpected. They plan for not knowing exactly what's going to happen. So when you reach that point, and you will with any plan, it's like, that's okay. I planned for that. Do you know what I mean? I gave slippage in the schedule for the unexpected.
I totally agree. And I think that's the nice thing about it. That's the fun thing about it, is that, if you know beforehand that, it's like going on a road trip, and, you come to a section that's closed, and you're forced to take a detour. And very often those detours were the nicest part of the journey. And I think it's the same in business, with the strategy, with that emergent strategy. Use the North Star, the guiding post, and then just have fun along the way.
Yeah, I'm all for having fun. If you're not having fun, it's probably not worth doing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I was sort of thinking about the difference. This shows how old I am now. Difference between getting somewhere in a car before sat-nav and after sat-nav. So before sat-nav, you're more concerned that you might get lost. Because, I don't know if you remember, you look at the maps, and then you need another map, because the first map, it's like you've gone past that map. So you have to open another big map to find out where else you go. And then you have to try and figure out where you're going. Whereas with the sat-nav, you're like, the sat-nav will get me where I'm going. So I don't have to worry, because it will just reroute me.
Yeah. And look, in those old days, when you were driving with a map, and you got to a junction or a turn, and it wasn't on the map, there was always this, is the map wrong? Or am I on the wrong road? So
am I reading the map upside down? Or maybe that's just me going, it is the right way up. Because if I go, I'm one of those people who have to turn the map in the direction that I'm actually in.
Okay.
I can't read it upside down. It just confuses me. My spatial awareness is not very good in that respect.
Yeah. And a map is also another thing about traveling with a map. And I think it's also such a good metaphor for the whole business thing, is that our resources are more limited and more limited by the day. And if you don't have that map direction sort of thing, I've worked with so many of these smaller business and emerging coaches, and they've got one thing in their mind, and that is they want to help people. So, and they think that just that passion is enough to make a business of it. And, I've told many of them, I think it would be better for you. And, after working with them for some time, and we get to a time where we sit down and say, you will be better off going to work for somebody as a coach, as a health coach. You're not made out for being in business. And sometimes people think it's harsh, but I think if you don't have the ability to make a map and follow it for yourself, then it's better to work for somebody else. I don't know what's your thoughts on that. I might be wrong.
No, I think that's quite interesting, because it's true. I think everybody goes into business with, I really want to do this because I have this great idea, or what I can bring will revolutionize how X works. I think everybody comes in like that. And then it takes a few bruising moments to go, oh yeah, I need a bit more than that. I need a plan of where the customers are going to come from, and what do I need to look like, and all this kind of stuff. And I think you're right. I think there are some people who are just very passionate practitioners, but to run a business, it's more than the practice.
Yeah.
In fact, the practice is easy. I think everyone would be a fantastic multimillionaire if all we ever had to worry about was actually doing the thing we could do.
Yeah.
Because, because that's the thing that drives us. It's all the other parts that's really hard, isn't it? The marketing, the sales and stuff like that. So what do you think about business plans then? Do you think businesses should have them or not?
Look, I think the days of the old, especially in small business, and I have to point that out. I think in big corporates, you still need the formal business planning process. But I think in small businesses, those days are counted. And I think the heritage that we've got, the way I was also in business school, and I was taught to do a formal business planning process. And when I went back to my own little small business, I couldn't apply it because nothing of that big corporate, framework business plan that I was forced to do, I couldn't apply it in my own business. First of all, I was just me, myself. I didn't have all these other resources. So I think the days for small businesses to work with a formal business plan, unless, Judith, you need funding. Don't get me wrong. If you need funding, you in South Africa, you will definitely. There's not a bank that will give you funding or an investor without a business plan. I don't believe they read them, but that's a different story. But I think for small businesses, especially, and for me, a small business is any business with, let's say, less than 15 employees, owners included. I think it's just such a waste of time to go through that whole formal business planning process. Whereas if you've got, the 5 or 6 different planning milestones, and you just make sure that you hit all of those and you hit the important areas, and you can literally, for instance, if you use the business model canvas, once you get the hang of that, you do a business plan in 20 minutes. And it's so much more, again, big picture roadmap sort of thing that I think it's very important, but not that formal document. I like to work with a one-pager. Another thing that it forces us to do is not to write long paragraphs. And if you have to boil the idea down to 2 or 3 words, like the old Edward de Bono mind maps, it sparks thinking. And for me, being a left brainer, it brings the right brain into play. And I think that's very important. We need to be a little bit more balanced with that and have more fun with our business plans. The first time I did a business plan, sort of formal, we decided to expand a little bit in the nursery, and I thought it would be a good idea to go to a bank and get an overdraft facility to just get me over the winter months, because in a wholesale operation, we needed to put in the capital in the winter so that we can sell the bedding plants in the summer. And I didn't have the money, so I used my formal schooling business plan, and I went, and the banker was a very nice person, and he looked at it and said, this is just a lot of mumbo jumbo. Go back, tell me exactly what you want to do and what do you need the money for. And I went back, but I couldn't come up with a formal written document. So it was a one-pager, and I even made a few drawings because I thought it was sort of more of a discussion document. So it was just a one-page, and I went back, sat down with the bank manager, and he just looked at it and he just burst out laughing. And he says, when I said go back, I thought, you're going to redo the whole plan. But anyway, this looks like a nursery school drawing that you've done here.
Little plants and little lovely little petals and things on them.
Yeah, it was literally because I drew out the whole sort of sequence that we're going to take the plants through and where the money is going to go in with, arrows, and where it's going to go out, etc. And he just said, okay, take me through this. And I took him through that, and without collateral, anything, on the spot, he gave me an overdraft. And that also shifted my mind because I think we all see in pictures.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I think this is right then. I think for small businesses, you need to be quite agile, and there's lots of things that can pull you off a business plan. You can get sick, your family could be sick, this could happen, whatever. Yep. I think having a strategic direction that you're going in is better than a business plan that you never look at. I remember working in an organisation, and there was about 200 employees, and the board, none of the departments had any kind of plan at all, really. They just all did their thing, but there was no plan, so there was no strategy. And I decided, I was HRD, and I decided that we need to get strategy in place. And we decided, what we would do. Every department would have a one-page plan.
Awesome.
And so every kind of big functional unit had like a one-page plan, and it started off with the overall the company, the 5 things a company wanted to do, and then each area, each division had to do its own one-pager that fed into that page, and I obviously checked to make sure it all worked. And it was so much easier because you could just so when it came to decision making, it was like, okay, no, it's not in the plan, it's not in the strategy. Where does it fit? Is the strategy wrong, needs amending, or is this a waste of time? And it made a lot of decisions was so much easier. I mean, it was really interesting because it was this particular company in its industry was number 1 in the UK and number 3, I think, in Europe at the time. And it had no financial budgeting process at all.
Can't you believe it?
Like, people would just buy stuff, and it wasn't like cheap, like expensive machinery, and then no one ever checked to see if there was any money or anything. It was just like, oh yeah, I've ordered this piece of machinery for this, or I bought a new this for that, or I've just given a pay rise for that person of this. And it's like, yeah, guys, you need a pay. You need to check how much money. And I think what it was quite interesting because it was the organisation, because some of the raw, for the product that was being produced, it provided some raw resources that was highly valuable. So they had become quite used to, there'll always be money because our process gives us this raw material, but weren't even thinking about how the market was changing, and that process would disappear. So you needed to put functional sort of controls in. But yeah, it was a kind of interesting. But again, but that was still, even though it was a one-page plan, it was more of a strategic direction as opposed to in quarter X, we're going to do this. It was like, by the end of the year, we intend to have done this.
But it's so nice to have that, strategic direction, because, for your weekly planning, and, I always encourage people to do the weekly planning. I think that's one of the things I learned on the farm as a child. My father used to go every Sunday. We were church-going people. After church, we got back at home, and he would excuse himself, and he would walk. There was a little hill, and he would walk up there with a flask of coffee. And he would go and sit there for an hour or so, just thinking of what he was going to do the coming week. And when I was older, it took me along with him, and he chatted to me and, told me, his thinking processes and things. And he had a long-term vision, but he was a practical farmer. He had that weekly plan for what he's going to do. And I think that's also where the strategic direction comes in, because if you have that, you can do the weekly planning a lot easier.
So before we end, so apart from burning the business plan, is there anything else a business owner should do to be successful?
Look, I think, again, and in the strategy context, Professor Clayton Christensen, he said, if you want to see what your real strategy is, look at where you spend your time and your resources, because that actually is your real strategy. And I think that's very important, that we have to be very careful, especially where we are in the world at this moment in time. If we look at all the natural resources that we're using, and, time and stuff that we're using, I think for me it's very important to all of us be more conscious and be a little bit more out of the box, like, to use your wording, to be a little bit more maverick about how we're going to go about our daily thing and what we're going to leave for the next generation. Because I've got a grandson of 4 years old, and I sometimes shiver when I think and see what we're doing and how we are using up resources that they won't have. And I think that's not fair towards them. Yeah.
And I think that's a real key thing that Maverick Leaders are all about, is that working for the greater good and doing something bigger for themselves. And, a Maverick Leader does think about what's been left behind. It's completely irresponsible to use up all the resources and have nothing left for anybody.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So, Dee Dee, would you come back again if I had something else to talk to you about?
Absolutely. I had a blast of the time. It was so nice and so interesting to hear. I've been following your podcast for quite a while. So, yeah, I'm a little bit starstruck here and very pleased to
Oh,
actually meet the woman.
I do know what to say now. Thank you so much. That's really, really good. Do you read the magazine as well?
No, I must confess, I don't read the magazine. I have a little bit of a problem with reading. So if it's audio, then I'm all ears. But yeah, no, I don't read the magazine.
Maybe that's something to think about in the future, about making it audio at some point. So that might be quite interesting, actually, having the articles.
Oh, that will be awesome, eh?
Yeah, I think I'll need a lot more time though. Or pay someone to do it. That might be another solution.
Oh yeah. Do go that route.
But if those that are listening, if they wanted to read the magazine, it's at themaverickparadox.com. So thank you so much for that, Didi. That's really good. And I'm looking forward to re-listening to this. I always kind of learn more when I've listened to it again, because when I'm not involved, if that makes sense. So
it does.
Yeah, it's kind of key to do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Judith. Thanks a lot.
Welcome. Thank you once again for tuning into the Maverick Paradox podcast. I hope you have enjoyed listening to my conversation with Didi as much as I enjoyed having it. At the Maverick Paradox, we improve your impact and influence by enabling you to effectively strategize, innovate, and execute. So to find out more, contact us at judith@maverickparadox.com. Thank you. Are you interested in Maverick leadership but unsure how to apply it? We can help. Judith Germain has collaborated with David Chislett to produce a 12-part video series on Maverick leadership and how to apply it to your creative thinking skills. This will truly get you thinking and putting into action your ability to innovate and execute, truly changing your outcomes. Check out the show notes for the link or contact us on judith@maverickparadox.com for more information. If you are pathologically curious and would love to find out more about the Maverick Paradox, then please subscribe to this podcast on one of the popular podcast platforms. Alternatively, you could explore our resources on Mavericks at maverickparadox.com or read the Maverick Paradox magazine. We publish frequently each week. If you subscribe, you will get our monthly newsletter. And let's not forget my book, The Maverick Paradox, The Secret Power Behind Successful Leaders. For those that love a good discussion, you could apply to join our exclusive Facebook group. Finally, if you would like to work with us or are interested in the Maverick at work, check out maverickparadox.co.uk.